forward to it.
Cool.
This is a good one.
Right, guys. Guys, hi everyone. We should be streaming live right now on our group. Could someone give us a wave or a hi to let us know we're on? Anyone on Desito at the moment watching?
Not yet. I've got a few people.
We're going to wait for a few minutes because people, you don't want
Let's give it.
Yeah,
I've done this
there are
online.
people on. Yeah, there are people online.
You invite them as well.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
brilliant.
You can say Facebook and then invite them there and then. Facebook will send them an invite.
Yeah. Right, hi guys, welcome back to our weekly Thursdays. Today we have the honor of having Manni and Romey Chopra from the Chopra Property Group. They are very good friends of ours, and we wanted them on to talk about all things property this week. We thought with COVID going on, there's a lot of people who have got second properties or investment properties or are looking now to maybe start a second income. So we thought we'd get the duo on to talk more about what's been going on in their world within property, as well as sort of giving us advice about what we can do going forward. So I'll hand you guys over to introduce yourselves and then we'll fire away.
Thanks, guys. Robbie, do you want to?
Hi, my name is Romey Chopra. This is Manni, a husband and wife team, part of the Chopra Property Group. We've been in property for now on about 15 years, on sort of full time. Prior to that, I graduated as a pharmacist, 4 years I can care to remember. So I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a number of years through the corporate structures and all the sort of various companies. And then through that, got involved in care homes and then sort of buy-to-lets, development, and then sort of on from there. So our journey has been quite interesting and sort of progressive along that. So so Manni and I sort of husband and wife team, I said, working together, which
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So we could touch on about that.
Manni, what's your background originally? So what have you...
So I was in IT actually, funnily, believe it or not. I started off as a programmer, which
wow.
To be honest with you, I did a degree in IT. So, you know, I got myself a job back in 1998. You probably weren't even born then.
We were, don't worry.
Exactly, we were born then.
We were born.
And so that was my first IT job. And, you know, you don't have to do very much. So we got I got a good job, and that got me through the first sort of 12 years of my career, progressed through IT, sort of doing more in systems analysis, and then ending up as a team leader, project manager. But then along the way, I had 2 kids, and, you know, as mums yourself, challenging it can be, and especially with IT, it's very deadline orientated industry. And you're not really being seen favorably when you're doing a 4-day week or a 3-day week.
Yeah, of course.
You know, they're like, well, look, they're trying to be nice to you, but at the same time, they've got those deadlines to, you know, because I was working in an IT consultancy. So we had clients that we were working for. So it wasn't end user. So around about 2007, 2008, when my kids were about 5 and 6 then, it just got really frustrating because I just feel that I wasn't winning. It was like trying to do a best of both worlds, underpaid, overworked type of scenario. Yeah. And then after a few years of deliberation, I decided to take a sabbatical in 2010. That was over a year. And in that 1-year period, I literally got as much education in property as I could. I was attending literally every networking event there was, trying to sponge off and learn everything. And that was back in 2011. And yes, Romey's right. We do have some experience before that, where we became accidental landlords in 1998 when we moved houses, and then the one which we lived in previously. But really, as a more sort of professional sort of property experience, I'd say from about 2010 onwards, that's when I got the 2 HMOs, which I'll talk to you about, which is basically house shares, replaced my income through that, and then I ditched my boss and also.
Oh my God, sounds like a dream transition, like from IT.
Hard.
Yeah, I imagine it was hard, but what kind of triggered from IT and pharmaceuticals property? Because that's quite a
complete difference away.
I think with pharmacy is one of those professions which is it's a very people orientated profession. So a lot of consultations, a lot of every day is different. You're never quite sure what's going to be walking through the door. So on your feet, and everyone expects you to have an answer. So that's given me that sort of very much a problem solving, and that's pretty much how I am. I'm very much one of these people that's numbers orientated, likes to understand the nitty gritty, scientifically minded, very technical. And I think that I use all those skills in property. I quite like I like trading, and property is an asset class which is interesting because it's constantly evolving. It has many uses, and over the years it's changing. I mean, it's changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about going forward now, the next 10 years are going to be very different from the past 10 years. So it's one of those, and it's a necessity. It's something that we all use, whether you live in your house, you go to a shop, whether you go to a school, whether you work in an office. Effectively, it's a property of some sort of nature.
Yeah.
So our focus is domestic. We do commercial. As I mentioned, I do care homes as well. So we've got quite a broad reach. So property is the vehicle, but the class aspect and how that's going to change, I think, is now making it a very, very interesting. But the skills that Manni, the great thing is Manni's, having worked in corporate and as project management, she's very organized, very systemized and processed, which, I'm typical guy, bag of a fact pack job. So it works really well. But I'm the creator. I'm a strategic thinker, and it's wonderful because she was a lot of the time I'm a bit like a mad scientist. I'll come up with all these crazy ideas.
Well, I mean, you.
It was like saying, okay, shut up now. Let me try to organize this and make some sense out of it. Go away, go and have a gin and tonic, and let me sort out what we're going to do, sort of thing. So
but also, Romey, but also I think it'd be interesting for you to sort of talk about, you've not just done pharmacy and properties, you have dabbled in other sort of careers, haven't you? You've done sort of recruitment, and that's where me and you got to know each other.
Yeah, I mean, pharmacy was one of those things, like a lot of kids from school, you're never really sure what you want to do. And, back in the day, your parents saying doctor, lawyer, or something of that nature, right? So you pretty much your career path was pretty much preordained at that time. So pharmacy was something that I sort of fell into and never really enjoyed it. It was a job I did, and I always believed that I knew at some point in time I was looking for a change. And sort of back in sort of 1995, 1996, I sort of left the pharmaceutical world and jumped on a plane and went to Belgium, and I set up a headhunting company and a software company. I didn't know anything. I mean, Manni's done the degree in IT. I did a degree in pharmacy. I went there with literally a blank piece of paper. I had no idea what I was going to be doing. And we just literally got married. So we'd been married about 6 months. And I said, listen, by the way, I'm quitting my job. I'm jumping on a plane to Belgium. And she's looking at me and she goes, well, what about me? I said, well, you don't have to stay behind. See you later. Right? And 5 years later, right, I came back, right? It's a bit of an exaggeration, of course. Yeah, but my point is that it was one of those things that I made it, but it was a very interesting journey because again, I started a completely new business from scratch, and I've done that times now, where literally I went there with not really, and that time because it's very much the sort of Y2K and the bubble thing, and it's very much the whole beginnings of the e-commerce platform and that stuff.
Yeah.
And that point, Europe didn't really have a very good infrastructure in that arena. So at that time, I was bringing guys over from India, China, Vietnam, back in those days. And I brought over about 350 guys over that period of time into Europe. So it was great. I knew nothing about IT. I still don't know anything about IT. But the pity is that the guy who was writing the checks also didn't know anything about IT. So we got on really well. He just said, I need 10 people. But it's all about, I think as you girls will know, with business, you've got to be good at sales. You've got to have that generic thing, and not everybody has that aptitude. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm one of those people where I'm go out and I'm front facing, and I like to sort of do that, and I've been doing that for a number of years. So from that sort of that whole arena then sort of helped me develop my skills in being able to sort of knowing, gave me the confidence of knowing I know how I can create a business and then develop it from there. And that sort of helped me move forward. And I think.
And Manni, just coming, sorry,
Sorry,
Romey, I was just going to say, like, Manni, and how did you feel while this was all going on? You know, obviously you're going on with your career, but that transition for you from being a mum, being in a career to suddenly learning something completely new. I mean, I totally get that. I mean, with this business, it's been a massive learning curve for me, completely. It's been a complete new challenge because it's buying and it's like retail and it's just completely different to what I've always done. How did you get through that transition? And property is predominantly a very male-dominated industry. So how have you done that transition yourself?
I think the one thing I did do in the very early days was immerse myself into it. I literally dreaming it, living it. And, you know, the kids were at school full time in the daytime. So I had that whole day to myself, 9 to 3, 9 to 5, whatever, after school clubs and all that. So I literally was at every single event. There wasn't many online events in those days. So I'd be going, and also I did a lot of weekend trainings. So, I'd go and do like a long boot camp in HMO strategy or lease options or what have you. So that's really how it's just learning, and then coming back and trying to implement that. Because a lot of these courses, they literally teach you so much stuff, but it literally like a brain.
Yeah, of course.
At the end of grade 3, but then you come back and you try and decipher it all. And it was a huge transition, as you said. I was managing a team of about 20 analysts back in Logica, and to this little cubby hole of an office. Right now, our office is quite glam. We've got a big, you know, double garage we converted a few years ago. But it was like a little room, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? But, you know, obviously I knew there was a reason for it, and I wanted to be, you know, better at being around for my kids. More, that was the driving force for me. So nothing else mattered really. And I think what made that transition also is remember, you attended this National Achievers Conference with Tony Robbins. That inspired you. And I read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, something Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Good
property. And ask any of your property friends. This is the book that literally transforms people's lives, because it teaches you basic things about, you know, it's not a job for life, because that's what we were taught, right? And job for life is the thing to do. But this book says to you, what the hell are you talking about? This is definitely not the thing to do. You know, what you want to do is become your own boss, right? And something you're thinking, oh my God, you know, it's just that, what's that tube light, what do you call it? Light bulb moment.
Yeah.
That was the book.
So when did you guys decide, think, right, one of you's in Belgium, one of you's doing property? When did you kind of come together? Like, at what point did you think, all right, we're going to work together now?
I think that was really when Manni decided that property was going to be, I think 2010 was the tipping point. I think prior to that, you know, fortunately, you know, the businesses that what I did fortunately was the businesses I set up, I invested all the profit into property.
Right.
So wow. I think the people like myself, if you started investing in property early 2000 and sort of went through that transition period, those people who've retained those properties have come out of it very, very well. So properties that, you know, properties that I bought back in 2000, 2001, 2003, 2005 are properties today that probably have, you know, increased in value by maybe 300%. And the beauty about an asset class like property is that it's one of the very few assets that you can take to the bank and leverage. Leveraging is a very, very important aspect in property. And people, you know, debt is one of those things where there's good debt and there's bad debt. You know? So debt on a credit card is bad debt, but as a debt, as far as property is concerned, because it's an appreciating asset, and buying a Ferrari isn't really a great asset class to purchase because it's always going to depreciate to some extent. Whereas a property will appreciate, but it will also create income for you. So it's a double one. I think so that's
convergent point.
Yeah,
it was a question.
Absolutely.
The answer to your question is 2010. I think he was still doing a little bit of pharmacy. Your recruitment business was still sort of cruising.
Yeah. I mean, I as I said, I think I made a big decision to buy a care home in 2007, and that was leveraging my skills as a pharmacist that I've learned. You know, and that time getting a license to operate a care home was it takes about a year to get through the you know, and you've got to learn all aspects of, you know, adult social care law, everything else, and they put you through some serious grilling in that process. I got through, which then allowed me to effectively purchase my first dementia care home, which is, you know, which was a big challenge. It was a big leap for me because I knew that it was going into an arena which I would have to learn very, very quickly and adapt. And it's one of those very, very highly regulated, but I've had it now almost 13, 14 years. And, you know, touch wood, even with all the current situation going.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's that all panning out?
Well, as I said, I think I'm extremely fortunate. I've got arguably probably the best staff I could possibly ask for. I always say to people, I own the care home, but my staff run the show. I have all the credit. I take no credit. I mean, with the grace of God, they have not had a single COVID case in my care.
Wow.
All down to my staff.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? It's an incredibly difficult business, but it's an incredibly rewarding business because we look after people who are, you know, people who have been sort of what I call the forgotten people in society. Because unfortunately, as you know, mental health is an area which is a big, big topic in this part.
Yeah.
Growing issue. We've got an elderly growing population, and I think COVID has clearly shown that it's the elderly portion of our society that are most affected. And unfortunately, I think going forward now, we're going to start to see, as our population starts to get older and older, we're going to start to see further challenges for everybody, care, as well as how people live. And, you know, again, these are topics we can touch on because I think that's really where I'm focusing my efforts, is that what COVID has done for me is it's forced you to reflect on how your business is it going in the right direction, and what do you have to do now to steer it in what is going to be a new world of how we live, how we educate our children, how we travel, etc., etc. I have an impact all across the industry, and I've had several conversations over the last 6 or 7 weeks with various people who are, effectively the top of their game in finance, in all sorts of other areas, who are saying that, things in the last 10 weeks have just changed beyond all recognition.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and
I think, sorry, go on.
Obviously, you guys you've mentioned you've got HMOs and care homes, so you've got quite a large, you've got quite a lot going on. So what's been going on with you guys in terms of, obviously you've had projects going on. We mentioned that you're
so
construction.
we were in a really interesting scenario because I was in the middle, I was almost at the middle or towards the end of one. I was starting one, and we're about to start one. So almost 3 different life cycles of 3 projects. So we finished one literally.
So it's the Watford. Let's talk about the
Watford.
So
I had a project in Watford. So we started that about 15 months ago, and we finished literally about 2 weeks before.
So just quick scenario. I'll let him continue in a minute, but it was just a new build block. So we bought land at the back of a commercial building with planning for 4 apartments. 4 one-bed apartments, equal 2 on the ground and 2 on the first. The first floor ones were over 2 levels, and that was almost a week before lockdown. The actual construction work was completed literally before.
Yeah. So what happens technically whenever you finish a construction, it has to be signed off.
Yeah.
The local council, which is called building control. So the building control officer has to basically sign off, which then allows you to register the property and on the registry, etc., etc. Secondly, any new property has to have what they call a structural warranty certificate. So those are 2 things which require the officer to come on site and all the relevant elements, it's a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we finished, that project finished on the 8th of March. I booked the officer, and unfortunately, he rang me up and said, "I'm sorry, our offices are now closed. We're no longer visiting sites anymore."
Wow.
And was a problem because without his sign off, there's nothing I could do.
Like renting it,
And not only that, typically as well, when you go with projects, typically what happens is it's a phase. You buy it, you develop it, and then you refinance it into what they call a buy-to-let product.
If you want to hold it or you sell it.
Yeah. Selling was out of the question because no one was going to buy.
No.
The market, as far as selling is concerned, it's essentially dead, right? So your only option is to rent the asset, but you can't rent it, as Manny quite clearly said, unless you've got sign-off. And you can't refinance it because the bank wants two pieces of papers, builder control and stock.
Yeah.
So it's a domino effect. So and if you don't have the two, you're stuck.
And the development finance is always a very high interest rate. You look at 10% a year, whereas buy-to-let's about 3 to 4%.
Yeah, and what also happens is that, remember, with a lot of people who are in development, what happens is you have 18 months ago, we told the bank we're going to finish on the 10th of March 2020. So your contract has now ended on 2020. Now, with bridging, unlike normal loans, with what they call development loans, what then can happen is says, right, you were paying 5%, you've now breached your conditions, we're now going to charge you 15%.
Oh, wow.
On that term, because this was a bridging contract almost, right?
So that's how development finance works. So they have the ability, and it's happened in previous recessions where they bankrupt the developer by basically imposing this ridiculous percentage on them and effectively wipes them out. Now, obviously, thankfully, what's happened now is that the government, by providing all these support measures, and I think what the government have done has been incredibly good, generous. It's probably the most generous package that any government has provided. Yeah, certainly across Europe. I'm not quite sure about the rest of the world, but I would certainly say, if you think about all the, whether it's a bounce back loan, COVID loan, furlough scheme, or
interruption loan,
statutory sick pay, all of these, and whether you're self-employed or employed, they have done an enormous amount. And I would say, had they not done that, I think a lot of people would be in a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of that's basically to stave off unemployment, because the way economics works in any country is that when unemployment rises, everything else is a domino effect.
Yeah.
Everyone stops buying, inflation goes out of control, interest rates go up, house prices go down. So the government has thrown everything to ensure they support the economy. And the property industry is a fundamental asset class which the government will do everything in their power to try to sustain. To stabilize. Because we don't manufacture anything in this country. The financial services market is in turmoil at the moment. Remember, I think the other thing girls to remember is that everybody has forgotten Brexit, which is around. And I always say to people that with God's grace, things will hopefully move on, and we'll all start to get back to some form of, it's not going to be normal, but it will be some form of, only to find that in December, we are going to be divorcing out of Europe, and that nobody really knows. And they haven't even got an agreement in place.
No. Do you think it'll still go ahead in December?
Sorry?
Do you still think it will go ahead in December?
Well, I think Boris has made it very clear that there's no question. He has made it very clear that we will leave no matter what. I think the thing at the moment is that I think there's an argument that there should be a delay. With everything that's happening, I think there should be some collaboration. I think that what will happen is they're going to talk it out, and I think they will work out, because Europe, if you think about it, look at whether it's Spain, Italy, France, including Germany, all of them are in a really bad state of play. We're one of the very few countries that will come out of this. We will be battered, but we won't be destroyed. Countries like Italy, Greece, it's all over for them.
I mean, just talking about the sort of the economy and how things are at the moment. Investors like yourselves, obviously, you've got a breadth of experience in terms of investing in property, doing developments. People who are now obviously sitting on, say, capital, not getting much interest in the banks, for example, but have got a saving pot. Is this a good time to be investing in property now? Is this the time to sort of be getting your foot in there, or is it still wait and watch and see what happens?
I think it's a good time to look, but they say the economists saying that it's going to be a V-shaped recovery, which the price are going to go back down and then going to go back up.
Yeah.
So I think now is not the time to actually buy, but keep an eye out. So start looking for the areas that you're looking to invest in, and start looking for the price changing. No one's going to know when it's going to hit rock bottom, right? But you have to, and also remember, right now, valuations are happening at pre-COVID prices. And I was in a webinar last night where a senior sort of, I think, I'm not sure his role was, but he was from Cushman and Wakefield, a very large corporate property surveyors. And he was saying that very soon they're going to be coming up with COVID clauses in the RICS valuation. So things will change. They're going to start down valuing properties. That's 5, 10, 15%. It depends on where you are in the country. I would say it is definitely a time to look, and always fortunes are made in recessions. And it's that Warren Buffett's saying, be greedy when everyone's fearful and fearful when everyone's greedy.
Yeah.
The time to be greedy because everybody is fearful, but start looking, and I'd say in 3 months' time, people are going to start getting motivated to sell and drop their prices.
I think the caveat I would put to that is that property today is very different to what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the caveat I would put in is that if you are a novice in this industry, or you're not educated, there's so much tax legislation, there's so many laws and things that are coming into how, particularly if you are a private landlord or a private investor. And I don't want to make it too technical because obviously I appreciate, but I think the way to run a property now is you run it as a business. If you've got, a couple of properties and it's just something you do on the side, I think those are the people that are going to be affected the most. The tax regime now is going to punish those people, unfortunately.
Do you want to explain? So basically, Section 24. Yeah.
Okay, I'll explain to you because it's a bit complex, but in a quick nutshell, or very quickly, if you bought a property before, the mortgage interest that you used to pay, if you bought it, so let's say you bought it for £100,000, you took out a mortgage for £70,000, and basically you pay £700 a month for your mortgage, for argument's sake. When it came to the end of the year, they'll say, okay, you made a profit of £1,000, but your costs were £700, and then your profits on the £300. Yeah. So what would happen then is that the expense, which used to be your interest, was now disallowed. So the interest component you can't offset as an expense anymore.
That's Section 24. It was introduced 4 years ago.
So what it means is your profit is now not on 300, on the full £1,000.
Right.
Even though you're still having to pay the bank £700 every month.
Yeah.
Be taxed on the 1,000, which means most people are going to end up with a negative situation.
Yeah.
Right. So in a nutshell, it's a little bit complicated, but just to say that, if you have 1 or 2 buy-to-let properties, the way the tax system will work now, if you have a mortgage on your property, let me just make, if there's no mortgage on it, it's a very different situation. But if you have, and most people have some sort of loan or mortgage on their for a period of time, and that's the bit that a lot of people either won't understand or don't understand because they're not in the property arena. The government now are targeting, because property is a class that they realize there's money there to be had.
Yeah.
Government now have emptied out their piggy bank. They're broke. So eventually now they're going to think, right, we need to claw back some money.
Yeah.
Because the tax base, the number of people working in this country has dropped. And the only way the government can get their money are from people paying tax.
Yeah.
Of those, how are they going to get their money? So you're going to start to see a lot of what they call indirect taxation being applied. Probably increase VAT. They will probably increase the top level of income tax, and they will target people who have an asset class like property. Now, the difference is when you buy a property, 9 times out of 10, you buy it on your own name, Mr. and Mrs. or an individual. If nowadays, if you are looking to do property as a business, then you buy it as a company, not individual. And there's a big difference. And again, I won't go much into it because Manni will tell me off because I get all technical. But the key thing to remember is that is that these are things that we actually do teach people, because Manni runs a great event where people come in and we educate people about, once upon a time, we used to sit where you're sitting and we had no clue about how to do this. But last 15, 20 years, where I've been buying property on and off, I've learned all about how to do. So started as my first buy-to-let little flat, 1-bedroom flat in Hounslow or whatever it was, and then moved on from there.
Ask questions.
No, I'm sorry, I'm just explaining to them. So it's a transition. So it's a transition.
I mean,
he gets weighing, by the way, so we have to sort of calm him down a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, we know Romey well. He loves to take over the show. It's fine. We don't mind. Listen, so for example, obviously a lot of people that probably are going to be watching this back or are watching this right now probably are in that position where they have 1 or 2 properties that they've privately bought and they've invested in. Would you say it would be worth them now looking at restructuring that and putting it into a business entity, or just keep hold of it if that's all they're going to keep? But if they want to grow, is this the best time to do that then?
Okay, I think there's 2 things you have to think. If they are looking to increase their portfolio, then obviously take advice from an accountant who understands, because everyone's position is different. But as it is a good time to look at it, because the educated property professional, as I call them, can see where the golden nuggets are. But to an untrained eye, they won't see what we see. So there's 2 ways of doing this. We encourage a lot of people who want to get into property that educate yourself, or
Can I just,
you want to jump? Sorry.
No, so basically what you're saying, Raman, I think, say you've got a couple of properties and they're just in the name. They obviously they know now, because obviously the accountants told them to claim the expense. So they're aware. Now, there's a trade-off. The point where you have to incorporate, you have to minimum there's a criteria as well. You can't just incorporate your portfolio.
Right. Okay. That's what
criteria. Yeah. The other thing I also want to mention is accountants, but obviously no offense to regular accountants, but they don't really know how this whole thing works. So I would consult a property accountant, because they'll explain it to you better. And every situation is different, because let's say you are in a full-time job, your wife works from home, or whatever, everybody's situation is so unique, right, to them. But they have to consult a property specialist accountant, even though they might have their own accountant. And knowing it's that trade-off, when you're ready to switch to the limited company structure, and you might not have enough properties. So you might have to bear the losses for a time until you build up your portfolio to 3, 4, or 5, whatever that magic figure is.
And if you are, it depends on whether property is a full-time job, or is it, if you have a full-time job 9 to 5 working and property, then the Inland Revenue will look at that slightly differently, saying, well, you're not running a business. This is a part-time situation or a hobby. So if you want to, like Manni said, if you want to incorporate and utilize all those advantages
of the limited company,
you then need to make that decision of becoming full-time property professional.
It's like chicken and egg, though, isn't it? How do you?
I think, like you said, it sounds like everyone's position is unique, and I think one thing you guys touched on is that you, as well as you having your own portfolio and all the experience, but you're actually passing your experience on, because you're running your own, you're doing all the webinars and your talks and things, right? So where did that come about, and where can people find you?
Right. So basically, we started running it in 2016, May 2016. And I have been thinking about it for a while, and property can be very lonely, because, property, there's a lot of money in it, frankly. But nobody wants to tell you the real secrets, or they'll tell you how easy it is to go there, buy a few properties. Nobody actually tells you the truth behind how much hard work it is, what are the challenges are. And, also money runs out. No matter how much money you have, especially in the areas that we live in, right? Southeast, it's not cheap. You're not going to buy anything less than 250,000, 300,000 pounds, even a flat. So you need a lot of capital. You need a lot of investors to work with. You need to refinance. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but you need to work with people, collaborate. So that's the idea came for the event, is community and collaboration. and collaboration, not just as business partners, but also knowledge. And, you know, property is changing constantly. So when we joined property full time, 2010 was just after the worst recession that we'd seen for a very long time, the 2008 recession with JP Morgan and the banks going bust and no liquidity in the market. And, you know, all sorts of queues outside banks were going bust and all that. And that was just a couple of years after that big, you know, recession. So it was a great time, actually, because not many people were buying them.
Yeah.
Great time to learn and then, you know, dive straight into it. And really, I think the asset bubble from about 2011-12 until 2015, 2016 was a great time because property prices went up quite in that period. So I think any time is good for property. And now I think is a great time. So going back to your question on events, obviously we're not doing physical events right now. It's all monthly webinars. It's called the J6 Property Meet. Frankly, I don't want to call it Slough Property Meet because that's, I call it Junction 6, which is the J6 meet. And we run it at the
now I know what it stands for. I always wondered why you called it the J6 Property Meet.
It's Junction 6.
Yeah.
Okay, clever.
Yeah, well, only because, you know, so that's once every second Tuesday of the month. The next week, Tuesday, the 9th of June, I've got a really interesting one. So I'd love for you ladies to join in. We've got very good speakers. So every month we put on new speakers, new topics. So this month is all about residential property investments, by HMOs, co-living, but also social housing. So another trend we've noticed in the COVID crisis is
the social housing side of things, right? Because there's not enough of that up for people, and there's a lot of people that require that right now. So
yes, so basically our main experience has been in private rental sector. So all our tenants, whether they're on the single flats or HMOs, are working professionals and always have been. Because we don't know much about the social housing market, and we've never been quite confident of that market. We working professionals market because we've been working professionals ourselves. So we understand how the mindset works and all that. The social housing market is booming now because the universal credit is not, there's no cap on housing. There was a cap. Let's say for a flat in an area, any given area is £1,000 for a 2-bedroom flat. The social housing rent would be, universal credit would be about $750 or whatever. So why would you take a reduced rent and give it to a social? You see what I mean? Because you always to maximize your rent. Whereas now there's no cap. So the universal tenant can also pay £1,000.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Rooms right now or flats because everyone's working from home.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing there is that it's guaranteed. Universal credit tenants that come in, the government incentivize you to take on that type of clientele, and they also provide you, as Manni said, they call them LHA caps, local housing authority capping rent, because that cap's been removed, and because the councils are effectively housing these people in temporary housing, in some, you are actually taking a massive burden off them by helping, and so you have to be quite selective, and we've been we've done it for the first time, and it's been very successful. We've not had to compromise on the financial model, but importantly as well, we've got very, very good tenants. Most of them who were in very good jobs, whether they were dental hygienists or engineers, accountants, or whatever the case may be. So these are all, the problem is that historically, the idea of taking somebody as a benefit tenant is to bring out the wrong image in people's minds. Yesteryear, yes, it was maybe a little bit like that because the rents were significantly lower. You're starting to see now a lot of landlords taking out the professional tenants and asking more of these guys to come in. It's guaranteed. And in this situation where there's so much uncertainty, having any form of guarantee brings a lot of comfort for a lot of businesses at this moment in time. So you're starting to see that, as Manni mentioned, the social housing element.
So going back to J6. So just a quick deed. So if they want to book for this event, it's next Tuesday. It kicks off at 7 p.m. And they just need to go to the website, j6propertymeet.co.uk, and they can register. It's free to attend, obviously. And we typically have about 40, 50 people on the call with specialist speakers. So next month is social housing and all sorts of residential property investment and the future post-COVID. But every month is different. So once they register, then they'll be sent regular emails telling them about the various events that we run.
Oh, wow. And so obviously you guys have been working together for like 10 years now, but you're husband and wife. How does that work, like, as a dynamic? Because you both have, I can see you kind of complement each other, but come on, husband and wife.
Fireworks. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about it. It was really hard. I'm going to say my piece first because it was really, really hard. Don't get me wrong. We both were getting quite frustrated to start with, but I think it's evolved quite nicely because now we have we've recognized each other's strengths. So now we all have roles. So just to give you a quick recap, when I'm the one who looks for deals, I'm the more marketing person. As you said, I'm more on Facebook and social media. Yeah. That's more with my personality. The Bollywood star in me. The dream that never happened, that never was materialized. So I'm the sort of front face of the business. And so looking for deals, meeting investors, relationship building, back end of the business, the systemization is me. He's a tech guy. He loves his tech. Operationally, he's amazing. He's a great negotiator. See, I'm talking good things about him.
Yeah, compliment.
I don't want to say anything. Keep going.
So yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is we're okay now. But yes, we've had fireworks, and in the evening, it's like he starts sulking because we've had an argument in the day, and I'm like, "Are you 2-year-old? Are you a 2-year-old?" Typical male ego. So
it is. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's any relationship, any dynamic is challenging, and I think when you're with each other 24 hours a day, it's tough because you never switch off, and that's the hard.
That's hard, I think.
When you have your own business, when you're in a job, you can come home and you can leave the headache at the office and come home. But when your office is at home. It's tricky because we'll talk about something and then you can't leave it in the office. You bring it to the dinner table, and then and particularly now because every business is under a lot of stress at the moment. That without question. And I think when you're working in husband and wife dynamic, we sit down now, and I think the good thing is that we sit down and we work out what the challenges is we're having, and then we sit down and try to work out how's the best way to do it. We don't always agree. 9 times out of 10, we don't agree on anything. But but it works because I think what happens is, like you say, it's that yin and yang situation.
Yeah.
And I think somehow, some way, we managed to make it happen because we both, at the end of the day, we're both looking at the same end result.
Yeah.
Agenda. We may have different paths to get there, but we're looking. And she's very passionate. I'm very passionate. As she said, I'm a numbers guy. For me, I'm very much gut feel. If it feels right, tastes right, then I'm encouraged to get involved in it. And so I think that's how
it's playing to your strengths. I think we've realized play to your strengths.
Yeah.
That's the best way to keep the business going. And yes, we've had good and bad.
I do love the way you sort of reel him back in.
It's tough. It's tough.
No, it is, and she's right. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. I listen. I'm like every guy. I hate being told what to do, even if you're missing. So, but and I hate to admit when she's right. Listen, I'm going to put my hand up and say that.
You realise we have this recorded, and I will. I will be sending you this and recording it.
Forever will be printed on Facebook.
But no. Listen, I think, and I think it's great, and I think you touched on it earlier. It is property has been a male-dominated industry. It is to some extent,
but it's changing.
But it's wonderful because she's been one of the very few women and very few in women to come Asian. That's I just used.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's great because I think it's encouraged.
Little one.
It's encouraged other ladies to come into the thing.
Yeah, into the arena.
More and more. And I think having a husband and wife dynamic also is work because clearly people like that.
end up attracting investors who got the family values and things like that. And people, people sort of, I guess, trust you more because, you've got a family, but you're not going to just do a runner, are you?
No.
A home, and you've got
we work with a lot of private investors, so invariably what tends to happen is that, as Manni said, that we meet up with them
and we share common values, and that sort of
of course. And also, Manni, I know you were going to start your masterclass this year at the beginning of the year. Has that started, and how's that all going, and are you continuing with that?
To be honest with you, the mastermind, we had about 7 or 8 people really interested. But I made a executive decision to postpone it, which I think has worked really well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It was going to be a huge time, effort, and obviously contribution from everybody financially as well. And obviously nobody knew that COVID was going to hit us.
No.
I think it's worked quite well. I've sort of put it on hold for now because we had so many projects going through, and I thought I'm not going to be able to do justice to it. So I think it's not the right time, but I've got all the IP there. Whenever I'm ready, I can kick it off in a few years' time. But I think, the next few years, and, I'm sure you'll ask questions about that, is the growth years for us. So I want to focus on that.
And in terms of if anyone wants to sort of get in touch with you guys, just to sort of, talk about investment, maybe what to do next, do you provide a consultancy service, or, how can they get hold of you, really?
Best thing is emails, really, Mine is easy, manni@mannichopra.com. Romey at romeychopra.com. Those are the emails. We're all the time, constantly, every day, really, we look at our emails and we respond to you or pick up the phone. We've got my website, mannichopra.com. That's where all the contact numbers are, my mobile number, my email. So, feel free. We're on the process of also creating a new website for the Chopra Property Group as well. So that's under construction.
Okay.
So I'll keep you posted on that and how that goes. But generally, we're more than happy to help people. We can't give advice. Obviously, we're not financially qualified to do that. But we're happy to give examples or share our experiences.
Okay, no, that's good to know. And in terms of sort of the builds that you have done, what would you say was your #1 favorite project that you've worked on?
Okay, you want to go first?
No, go on, you start.
I think the Reading one with Karan, if I may say so, because it was a huge learning curve for me, massive. And we went from just doing, pardon?
I think for everyone.
Yeah, for you, I guess, as well, right? So basically from doing smaller projects, just converting houses, extensions, and, loft conversion, new build with, brand new build of 8 flats. You can see the back, the photograph right there. It was a huge experience. I think we learned loads. And I'm sure I can speak for Karan on that part as well. And I think it was really great. And we had a great team. The construction team, obviously, we didn't agree on everything with them, but they performed and did a great job. And I think we had a great time. I think you worked very well with Karan. I worked very well with Karan. It was great. That was my favorite project to date.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think it's difficult because I think every project is so different. I mean, I've just done. Watford was a very interesting project because it was an incredibly challenging project. Reading was a really straightforward because it had an open piece of ground and the logistics. The problem with Watford was that it was on a one-way street.
Oh wow!
Nowhere to leave your equipment.
No place to skip.
No place for a skip. You just drop it and build it there and then. Very challenging.
And all the materials had to be taken to the skip the same day.
Same as you dig, take it out, nowhere to leave it. So massively challenging, but we managed to do it and on time, and we did it on budget. And I think I love that challenge. And that for me was great because, 4 or 5 other people had looked at that site and walked away. For that reason, we took it on. And I think people then, it gives you credibility because they think, what, good on you. You've taken something that most people would have walked away from, and you've taken it. And actually, everyone that's moved in there it's really great when turned around and said, oh, wow, this is one of the nicest flats we've ever seen. Okay. And that sort of then gives you, think, oh, that's great. And I have that feedback. So that's worked really well. And, but, we've got I've got a few projects in the pipeline now. I'm doing one in Bracknell at the moment, which is an existing property, which we've expanded significantly. And that's really good because the HMO market,
which is basically houses.
Yes, house of multiple occupation. That's what HMO means. But that's changing because co-living now the dynamic of people living together is going to change. So gone are the days where 5 people will share one bathroom.
Yeah.
En suites. Home working is going to become more of the norm. 5 people living in a house together has challenges because everybody wants a very good internet connection. If you want a VPN network and there's 5 of you sharing internet connection, it isn't going to happen.
We had that problem, haven't we, just for homeschooling.
So this is the thing. So I've brought in, so this project, I've brought in data comms experts. I've gone with sound insulation, air filtration systems. I have really gone to town to understand the future of co-living and how people to live in terms of good fresh air, good connection, good amenity space, en suites, all these things. So I've created this checklist, which I believe is going to serve well for what I believe is going to be the next type of properties that people will want to live in.
And all en suites. That's the way to go as well for sharing houses. You need everybody needs their own privacy.
And it also feels like you need to almost have a space where you can almost have like a shared workspace. You know, like you have these things popping up in London where people just go in and sit. It's almost like you have to have that massive room with the people can be in the kitchen stroke desk space areas.
I agree.
So
it is
rooms can become half a living room, but also shared desks.
Well, and I think one of the points, just to go back to Watford, we did something quite unusual. Most flats, a lot of people who've lived in flats who've not been allowed out, they're the ones that really suffered in this situation. Most of us can go in the garden and sit there and enjoy the lovely weather we've been having. But if you're in a 1-bedroom flat in a tower or something like that, where do you go?
Nowhere,
so the flats that we actually created an outside space within
courtyards.
We created a courtyard and terraces for each flat.
Amazing.
Wow.
An outside space, which was the first I'd ever seen in Watford. When the building control officer came around, he goes, wow, he said, I tell you what, I said, because no one had done it, but we had the foresight, we thought rather than create a 2nd bedroom, let's create an outside space instead. So these are the dynamics now, I think, that people are going to start to appreciate more and more, particularly when they're living in maybe smaller, more contained type of living. And, we're going to appreciate having a garden much more now than we've ever had before.
Absolutely. So what's next for you guys? So what's on the agenda? Like, you guys...
sorry, go on, you start.
So my target, I think, is 100 rooms or 100 units. That's my target in the next 2 years, because I want to write a book, which is basically 0 to 100. Because back in the day, when I was born in Mumbai, I didn't even have a room to myself. Never mind a room, I didn't have a bed to myself. We were 4 of us kids, plus my parents, sharing a 1-bedroom flat. So from a 0 room to 100 rooms, that's the short story I want to share and hopefully inspire and motivate people. So my target is I need about 30 rooms or 30 more units to build build and retain, and I'll reach my target. So that's my immediate next 2-year target. And then in 2022, I'm going to fly off to India, Mumbai, and I am going to start a housing project for slums. So not far from me. Yeah, well, I COVID has made me think, this is not the way people should be living at this time. No toilet, they have outdoor toilets, for God's sake, it's just how are people even living like this anymore?
You helped a handful of people out there, you've done your job. Do you know?
If I can do something for even, like you said, absolutely. And this particular slum was not far from where I grew up, when I was younger. And, we had maids, like back in the day, you had maids, they would come and, we had a connection with people living in those slums. And they're, good people. They're not just like you and I, just, you know what I mean? So I think if I could do something, that would be, me giving back.
Amazing. How about you, Romey?
Well, I think I've seen what's happened with care home industry and stuff, and that's really made me impassioned that I think the system is broken. To try to create a sort of healthcare sort of system which takes a lot of burden away from the NHS, because there is a disparity. Unfortunately, when you come out of hospital and then you go home, and there's a big disparity in terms of the level of care you get in a hospital compared to what you get in the community. So there's a there's a gap there, and I'm looking to bridge that gap. I've got some ideas that I'm working on. I've got a lot of interest from potential investors to do that. So, I'm a big thinker. I want to do something that's going to have an impact, because I do believe that I'm a big believer that the elderly element of our population aren't treated as well as they should be.
No.
They tend to be forgotten. They've made a massive contribution to our society. And I think that we owe it to them. We're going to be there one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Not far for me to go yet. So, what I mean? So, but I believe that, we've all, like your own parents, that, at the end of the day, we're very fortunate, that that if we can do that. And I think that I've got a massive amount of, for me, when I go back to my care home and I see the residents there, the biggest payback I get is when I speak to them and I said, how's everything? They go, Romey, I'm the happiest I've been in 30 years. Thank you. And that's, what more do you need? When you know what I mean? So for me, that's a massive, I'm a big believer, if you can make this much difference in someone's life in a positive way, there's no amount of money that can make that any better than that. For me, that's what it's all about. And like Manni is giving back to people. I mean, Manni's talking about doing it from in her home. I want to do it. I'm born and bred here. I want to do it in this country. I think there's a lot of people in this country who are suffering. You go out on the street, the number of people homeless is just unbelievable. And I think it's going to get worse. But I think the elderly population, I think particularly, they are vulnerable, and particularly when they get mental health, and unfortunately institutional care. Listen, you guys have seen the Panorama program. It's pretty awful. And I feel that there is a way of changing that. And I'm hoping in some small way I can do something to contribute.
Yeah, God, absolutely. That's amazing.
Wow.
So,
it brings us to the close of the session, and we have a quick rapid fire for both of you.
Yes, I love games.
Do you want to start with question 1 then?
Oh, then you've got the questions. I haven't got the questions.
Have you not got them? Okay, hold on. Right, okay, so get ready, guys. So Manni, you can go first. HMO or new build?
New build.
Marks out of 10 for working with your partner?
You mean 10 is the worst or best?
No, 10 is the best. So marks out of 10.
7.
Oh, what? Why did he lose 3 points?
That'll be for another show.
Yeah.
What was the question? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Favorite
Biscuit.
Biscuit.
What's your favorite biscuit?
Oh, a rich tea.
Oh, good. Favorite tea?
Masala chai. Any day of the week.
Which one is most likely to damage the car?
Which one of you?
Oh,
every day of the week.
She's supposed to answer the question. Who's the better cook?
I don't cook, so yeah.
You can't cook, won't cook.
Who's the stricter parent?
Me, definitely.
The ogre.
And one word that best describes your husband?
Generous.
Oh, that's nice.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. So when we talk then now, it's your turn. You can have your go without interrupting her.
Okay.
HMO new build?
New build.
Marks out of 10 for working with your partner?
9.
Oh.
He wants something.
Yeah.
Favorite biscuit?
Favorite biscuit? Custard creams every day.
Yay, mine too. Favorite tea?
Actually, yeah. Cup of tea.
Ah. Which one is most likely to damage the car? You sort of gave that one away though, didn't you already?
I'm sorry.
Still her, right? Okay, who's a stricter parent? You. We got that one because you interrupted. And one word to best describe your wife.
Adorable.
Sorry for the Facebook live.
Such a lovely husband, see?
Oh, God. You made him say something I haven't been able to for many years. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah, you're selling the dream, guys.
Oh, definitely.
My husband, I have to be honest, like hand on heart, I think we would actually kill each other.
We've been very close to it. Don't worry about that.
Hence, I poured him off on you. I'm like, you lot can have him instead.
You have him, definitely, right?
I love
Buddies.
him. It's my brother. Love him.
Oh, bless you guys. So thank you guys so much for coming on today. We've loved having you on. Obviously, the live is going to stay on the Facebook timeline, so loads of people will be watching back. So check in. You said where they can find you. You've got your website coming soon, and we'll leave your details online. But they can also find you on LinkedIn. Not to forget, Manni's got her webinar next week on Tuesday,
9th of June.
Yep, so that sounds like it's going to be a good one about HMOs and social housing.
Yeah, social housing and residential investments in general.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you guys so much for joining our Thirsty Thursday. We loved having you on. We definitely want to have you guys back after post-COVID and life in property after that, because I think that'd be really interesting to hear. And thank you again. So
we loved it. We really loved it. It went so quick the whole hour. You guys have been amazing. Loved it. Loved it.
Oh, thank you guys.
Not prepare or anything, so we've had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.